The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Stage Door Show tonight. This is Dave Hondel. Our guest tonight is a classically trained actor and producer with nearly 50 credits to his name, and continues to grow from there. So let's bring him in to discuss his amazing work. So welcome to the show, Mike Markoff. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, man.
Yeah, me too. We are too, and we were so happy that we got to connect on social media and to have you on the show tonight. But I knew you grew up in the art-rich city of Chicago, Illinois, and I just wanted to know, did that kind of have a piece in you being interested in getting into the arts and into acting?
Huge, absolutely huge. And Chicago. If the listeners don't know, is just a massive theater town. Obviously Steppenwolf, Second City, Goodman Theater. It's known as a great playwright and journalism city. So I was birthed into the theater scene in Chicago really, really young.
Yeah, so. I mean, Chicago's a great, the Chicago theater and just so many great venues, like you said, in the theater, and and also a great movie town. A lot of films were made there, and Home Alone. I mean, did you kind of get into a lot of the films that were filmed there, and that kind of add to that, love of arts? Totally.
Well, yeah. I mean, all of those. I mean, particularly the John Hughes films. What's so interesting is, I grew up in the northern suburbs, which was literally where 16 Candles was shot, Breakfast Club, Home Alone, everything. I mean, the high school right next to mine was where all that was shot at. So I essentially grew up in the 80s teen movie neighborhood.
Yeah. Now that's Highland Park, North Park. Is that? Am I right there? Was that where that was filmed?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm from right next to Highland Park.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know that a lot of those great films were done there, and I grew up in that era. I grew up in the '80s, so for me that was just the best time in movies for what I can remember. And and also yourself, you've been in a lot of series and movies, and Death Squad, from the CW series Death Squad. I mean, you were the lead in that, and that's one of those amazing. I love the series actually, and in your part as well. It's kind of a gritty. You play a lot of gritty characters in your work, and talk about that. Gritty characters, and is that something you're kind of drawn to, or is that something that you like to audition for?
Yeah, I think it's both, but both of those are basically the product of sort of how my career kind of naturally unfolded. Honestly, I was auditioning for normal dudes, and I was not booking them. The charming guy, the cute guy,
sure,
or any of these kind of romantic leads. I wasn't booking them, and it was in retrospect, the roles that I started booking, which were more of these kind of antagonists, anti-heroes, and deeply flawed individuals, I somehow was able to empathize with a lot more.
Sure.
because I've spent a lot of time thinking about my own flaws, and so when I saw them in characters, it kind of came a little bit more natural to me. Because I've been known typically to get cast against type, and so it's kind of funny how you think your career is going to go in one kind of direction, and then your art, the way it kind of manifests itself, you realize that your strengths are in a different direction.
Yeah.
And I found that I deeply enjoyed getting to the genesis of why someone behaves badly, and of course it's almost always pain. Right. And I sort of like to do the dance with that pain. And, some of it is there readily available in the script. Some of it takes a lot of investigation, and some of it you sort of create, that life. And I guess I just kind of enjoyed that. And I think even as an audience member, I like those characters more. I get jealous of characters acting very bravely, of characters acting with extraordinary compassion. Of course, these are all qualities that I want to have.
Right.
But I found myself rooting for the guy who's just kind of who keeps fucking up.
Yeah, the underdog.
And,
right.
Yeah, and or even and so I I guess I kind of resonated with that, and I think audience members in general, because look, we're all flawed human beings,
right,
walking this very difficult earth, this world that's filled with like pain,
right,
that, you know, even if you personally got everything that you wanted, you know that your neighbor could easily be suffering.
yeah.
And so, like, yeah, you know, this is the world we live in. It's the arena. It's all this. There's so much. There's so much conflict and intensity in the existence of our lives, and I guess finding those in the scripts and in the characters kind of became sort of my strong suit, I would say.
And then, you know, and this is really hard to do for actors, but I wanted to ask you this question, you know, talking about some of the characters, you know, some of them are on the darker side, and, you know, but they're likable. And I know we just kind of touched on it a little bit just now, but, you know, I think a lot of us have flaws, but how do you kind of, you know, make your character likable? Because sometimes I'll watch a movie and we'll watch a dark character, and that person, if the acting is great, you'll actually believe that that's the person. You know, like you'll kind of walk away like, oh my gosh, you know, that was like such a good performance that I really believed it. But then when you have like a dark character that you can really root for, and, you know, and it's almost like conflicting for the audience because you're not supposed to like this person, I guess, but then you end up liking somebody. Is that a conscious effort for you to try to make that character likable in a way, if that makes sense?
Well, I'd like to think it's a byproduct of perhaps doing the character justice.
Yeah.
But, you know, yes, there's a part of me that's thinking, you know, I want the audience to relate to this character. You know, somebody being bad for the sake of being bad is just crap.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It just
right.
It exists in a very rare psychopath kind of form.
Right.
Most of us have villainous tendencies towards us, even right. if they're just small. You know, we think the wrong thoughts, or
sure.
sometimes we make the wrong decisions. So to kind of answer your question, I think I force the audience to empathize with me. Right. So I'm not going to show them somebody who's behaving bad for the sake of being bad, because to me that's not real. It's kind of sort of cartoonish. It's a little bit more classic villain, yeah. you know, in a superhero yeah. kind of context.
Yeah.
But like a human being who is victimizing another human being
right.
is probably a part of some kind of cycle of victimization that was done to them. And the way I try to empathize with people in general is I think about how when they were kids and what struggles that we mutually would have had with guys, if it's puberty and trying to get the girl, or being bullied, or any of these things. And so my characters, I'm often very much their past. I try to keep their past kind of very alive,
yeah.
In everything that they do. So that you're not seeing this guy who's just being bad. You are seeing
right.
an
byproduct.
8-year-old boy,
right? Exactly.
An 8-year-old boy whose parents neglected him, who suffered
right.
and spent so much time being alone, staring out his window, watching the other cool kids
yeah.
have great lives. I like to think that that's what the audience sees. That's certainly what I try to see. I try to justify my character's actions, even if they're horrendous. And look, I've played, like, of course I've played a child molester before, and so it's like, and it has to fall within that same
right.
same sort of realm.
Sure.
You can't just sit there and judge the character. You have to create a life there that
yeah.
you know, that's genuine.
Yeah, I mean, that must take a lot of work, and I mean, just kudos to you for being able to do that successfully as well. You know, you also take on roles that are physical. You know, like with weapons, perhaps, or, you know, on horseback or whatever. And do you enjoy that type of thing? You know, doing your own, like, kind of stunt work, so to speak. I mean, is that fun for you?
Yeah, there's a part of me in some of these roles where I'm really living out some childhood fantasies of, like, trying to be the superhero. You know, obviously, you know, Death Squad, you know, just being this dude with a machete,
right.
using it like a samurai sword against zombies and everything. It was awesome. Of course, this wasn't like a, you know, that role, that whole experience, the whole idea of that wasn't to go put on an acting seminar
yeah.
for tomorrow's youth of actors or anything like that. That was kind of me having some fun and what was a really fantastic ensemble experience that we shot in Armenia.
Yeah.
Of course, at that time, we knew we were doing an independently financed show. We didn't know that it was en route to being sold to CW for the first round of United States distribution. So that was surprising and cool and a lot of fun.
Very cool. And the other thing about your training, your classical training, when did that start? I mean, when did you start like really kind of getting serious about acting? Because sometimes it's people, being in drama, I guess, in high school drama class, and sometimes they get to college and it's something that they have an interest in maybe pursuing. When did that serious acting bug, I guess, hit you?
Yeah, so I mean, I started really young, like performing in musicals at my temple, and it started there, and then it just kind of it unfolded as the school system, which was still a public school system, but where I was at, I went to this high school called Stevenson High School, where had this amazing fine arts program with all of these different wealth of classes. I mean, for God's sake, my teacher was a playwright at Steppenwolf.
Oh, wow.
Winning Joseph Jefferson Awards. Yeah, his name is Joel Drake Johnson.
Cool.
He was an extraordinary man. I say that because he passed away a few years ago, and he would take us on field trips into the city, like my freshman year, to go to Victory Gardens Theater, Steppenwolf Theater for these different workshops for showcasing. I was into playwriting when I was younger as well. And so that really kind of fed the fire. You're doing kind of, in high school theater, I'm sure any actors can like attest to like so like political and intense, and it's your whole life. And, that's where I remember first kind of taking it seriously. And then I got cast in this theater company called Reality Theater, where we traveled all around the Chicagoland area doing these self-produced theater shows. And that was at the age of 14. And so when it kind of became like a daily muscle that I was exercising, and I was starting to see what I could do. And I'm like a pretty like mediocre kid at the time, sort of this overweight little chunkster who's not really good at math. He's not really good at sports. He's not really good at anything. But man, I got on stage and I was like a young Chris Farley.
It's like you found yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I got deeply involved in improv really young too.
Yeah.
And, and then it just kind of, it sort of unfolded from there, and lots of theater, and then got cast in my first movie when I was 16. Just
wow,
really by mistake. I mean, I found out about this casting for this horror film, and it did pretty okay. I ended up getting released by Universal.
Wow,
and then I didn't really look back from there up until a certain point where I quit the industry for a while. But it was sort of one foot in front of the other, and I guess there's a lot of different, there's a lot of people who are interested in theater in high school and really intense about it. And then they get to college and it kind of drifts away.
Yeah.
It just, for me, it was like, once it started, the ambition kind of was really hardcore. And I was Googling stuff back, and this is like, we're talking like 2001, 2002. And I just realized that I could find out any information that I wanted about this industry. So I found out how to get an agent when I was 15. I just Googled it, and I just cold emailed everybody.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say that I still do it to a certain extent, but if I want something, I'm going to put the feelers out there and learn. That's sort of how it happened.
Well, I think that's an important message for our listeners, because we, with our artists that listen, whether actors, singers, no matter what they do, I think that's an important message that, it's even if you have an agent or manager, you have to do things yourself. I mean, it's a lot of it is hard work, and most of it is, and talk about that piece, because I think when you're getting into acting or any kind of entertainment field, I mean, a majority of it is the business end of things, and smaller portion is actually the acting or the singing or whatever. A lot of it's business,
right?
Right?
Yeah, entirely.
Yeah.
So there's just a couple like, a couple foundations that have to be there in which you can begin to have into building a thriving career. And I don't care who you are or what the circumstance is, but if you're able to get a resume and a reel, I mean, that is, it needs to be there, and it needs to be solid. And we live in a time where you can go on the internet for free and find unpaid acting jobs and get the footage and get the experience that you need. and then save up from in any way you can to get a professional headshot. If you do not have real footage and you do not have a headshot, the agents or managers or whomever is just not gonna listen. Now, look, people, yes, this isn't 1991 where you're gonna go get discovered because you work at the Burger King in Studio City and you made friends with a casting director or a director or a producer or something like that. You just have to put in the work. Yes, having the craft and, you know, being a good actor is always important, but you just have to get on Backstage, the app, backstage.com, whatever it is, Actors Access, all of these things. And you need to audition for things that are unpaid at first.
Yeah.
I mean, you can audition for paid things too.
Yeah.
In fact, some people out of the gate, they book them, they do incredible, and they don't look back.
Yeah.
But if you're just out of like your BFA program from wherever you've decided between LA, New York, I guess technically you can go to Atlanta or New Orleans now too.
Yeah, right.
Chicago,
Yep.
And you need to get real footage. There has to be proof in the pudding that you can do the thing. And it used to be impossible. Like there wasn't, we live in a time where we're oversaturated with content, and that for the purposes of this conversation, it's a damn good thing.
Yeah.
Because everybody and their sister are making movies.
Yeah.
It's very easy now. You can do it from a cell phone. These cell phone movies are actually looking pretty damn good. It's kind of surprising.
Exactly.
Get the footage of you doing the thing.
Yep.
And you do something good enough, if your acting is there, and you get a rep to take a look at it, it's a very good chance that they could be smitten with your talent and your craft and your ability, which, by the way, speaking of which, we're also oversaturated with representation now too.
Yeah.
So just getting a beginner rep almost wouldn't be too difficult either.
Yeah.
Getting a good one, it makes a lot of difference, for one thing.
Yeah. But you still got to do the work yourself, even if you have representation. I mean, right? I mean,
you
think about the reps have hundreds of actors, and you know, you gotta still do the work. You know, yourself. You can't rely on your reps to do it.
I get so surprised by people who are still sort of in act one of their career, and they're like, "Oh, I don't self-submit." I'm like, why not?
Yeah, right.
There are incredible projects out there. Incredible. The time I got to first like really quit my day job was like a crappy audition on Backstage that ended up paying me $400 a day for 30 days. And I was able to quit my day job and not look back. And that's Backstage. And people crap on Backstage, and they shouldn't.
No.
Everything under the sun is up on there.
Yeah. It's
taken me to other countries and things like that. And so
it's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because of all your work that you've done, and you're also a producer as well, so this is an important question for my listeners, but talk about the importance of being nice to people and treating everybody on set professionally, I guess, and what, you know, how you want to be treated, I guess, because I think it's a small world in this entertainment business, and you know, talk about the importance of that.
Let's like lay the circumstances here. You're a young actor. You've just come out of theater school, and in theater school, you were in a nice air-conditioned theater, sitting on a cushy chair, and one by one, each of you had time to prepare for it, ample time to prepare for the scene or the monologue that you're going to go do. You go and you walk up to the stage, you do it, done, end scene. And that is end scene, because that's never going to happen in your professional life. In your professional life, you're going to be too hot, too cold. You're not going to get enough sleep. You didn't get enough time to prepare. You had to drive 6 hours to get to this natural splendor in Sedona, and you had to wake up at 2 a.m. to get for it. What I'm trying to say here is that you are never going to ever have optimal acting conditions. And what usually happens on set, and I see this all the time, and I'm also very guilty of this, at least I was, is I would feel victimized because something wasn't going right on set, and I turned into an asshole really quick. And I felt like somehow entitled, like, oh, but I'm wet and I'm cold. I'm not going to be able to do the scene right. And you are never going to have the optimal acting conditions that you had in your air-conditioned, cushy-seated theater classroom. Be prepared for that. And what's going to happen is people on set which is a highly dynamic environment, highly dynamic. You've got all these different unions, you have all these people doing their jobs, and you have like some of these movies are costing the GDP of small countries. Like they're, you know, and then, but of course the same goes for small and independents too. It is a really intense creative environment with a lot of different crafts all happening at once. Yeah. It is your job to be there and to be an asset no matter what. And being a pleasant person and a good person goes so far. I reference this sometimes on the set of Death Squad. We were shooting sometimes 16, 17-hour days, 100 degrees in these dilapidated, underground, post-apocalyptic, fallen infrastructure parts of Armenia, where sometimes I wasn't fed or I didn't have water available to me. And there was a few moments there where I was like a little, I was a little like intense to be around. And there's this other actor on set. His name's Mike Ferguson. Tattoos all over his body and his face. Gigantic beast of a man. Yeah. But like this big teddy bear. And he always had this positive attitude. He was always so kind to everybody, even though he had like, God forgive me if he's gonna end up listening to this. You know, chronic diarrhea, missing his wife, not enough time to prepare. All this, and the guy is smiling, and he just comes up to me and he says, "Yo, Mike, we're going to be eating shit sandwiches on this set the whole time, and we're going to smile when we eat it." And from that moment on, I think about him when I'm on sets, and I feel like adversity. It's like it goes so far to be a good person, to be an asset, because every single day things are going to go wrong. Yeah. And everybody on that set has an excuse to be an asshole. Yeah. Because everybody on that set has been victimized. When we get victimized, we start lacking empathy. Yeah. And that's when movies like become bad. That's why big studio movies, for example, with like that have a $10 million budget for market research, somehow still make a bad movie. How do you do that with $150 million? It's because it's a very creative, tender animal that you have to nurture. And everybody knows, like when you're on a set, when the creative juices are flowing and people are getting along and everybody has this forward momentum, it's usually because of good directing and good producing. Yeah. You know that you're a part of something special and something magical happens on set. It's some kind of magical moment, and you won't achieve that otherwise. Sorry, a long-winded answer to the question there.
No, but it's absolutely true and well said. And so I think that's one of the most important things that we talk about on the show. But the other thing, I know that you have so many new releases and a lot of things that just came out. Wrong Place, Wrong Time, Escape to the Cove. Stolen Season, which I understand took a lot of festival awards, which is amazing, and also a theatrical release called Solar Eclipse. So talk about some of those newly released films and what we can expect from some of your work that just got put out.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those were actually were COVID movies and were a lot of fun. Escape to the Cove was one of my favorites, and that was during lockdown. And the writer-director, Robert Enriquez, he was like, there's nobody on the streets right now. It'd be a really great time to do a post-apocalyptic, movie here. Right, so he threw that together and grabbed like Eric Roberts and a couple of other really talented actors. And we made this movie during lockdown. And it ended up getting a great release. It's still one of my it's my best reviewed performance ever. Which was so, because you get mixed reviews sometimes, and you think, but man, this one was just consistently like, wow, this psychopathic, character just sort of chewing on all of his scenes. They let me improvise a great deal of it, which was just so much fun. And so that one's out in the ether. Stolen Season is a fantastic film, and I'm working with that director 2 months from now in Alaska on a really interesting thriller called Acton Vale. And and then the recent installment that's happened lately has been these kind of made for TV kind of vibes, which is actually in a strange way, in a roundabout way, an interesting step for me. Not because they're on like TV delivered out to a channel changing middle America or anything like that. It's more so because these are some kind of roles that, when we kind of began our conversation where we talked about, I'm playing these antagonists and these anti-heroes, I'm starting to sort of jump into some of these more romantic kind of leads, which is really like, I would just say like, Mike, how come you don't go do romantic leads? It's like, it's not that it's a choice. I just don't think they're really going to want me. I got this crooked face. I'm a very, very weird kind of guy here. But Lifetime, God bless them, they're starting to get a little bit more cinematic. They're starting to get a little bit more real. They're getting more colorful, which is important. Yeah. And they're also like starting to hold a magnifying glass to real people. So I have this one coming out next month, which is a part of a slate of films called like Sex, Lies, and something off the wall, just like, okay. But the movie was called Mystery in Paradise, but I was told this during set. They're like, by the way, just so you know, they are going to change the name to make it something kind of steamy. Okay. And I was like, oh gosh. And then it came out a couple days ago because I think it's premiering August 20th or something, and Saturday night. Okay. And it's now going to be called Temptation Under the Sun. Oh, wow. Nice. Which kind of feels a bit like that title. It would have been a buzzword for me when I was like 13. Right. It was like 90s, and it's like Cinemax after 10 p.m. Yeah, right. When you like discover that and you're like, oh yeah. But it's not NC-17. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's actually it's like a quirky island romantic comedy, which was so much fun to do. I worked with such fantastic people. The director, Lane Schefter Bishop, she is incredible. My co-star in that, the lead, Annika Foster, she was so wonderful to work with, and that was a great experience. So some of these made-for-TV movie vibes, Hallmark, Lifetime, all this, it's actually been a lot of fun for me because I'm usually screaming at the top of my lungs at like little kids or abusing people or like walloping in my self-pity and it kind of felt nice to just kind of be like, to be a normal guy. Granted, it's a normal guy in an extraordinary situation. I think that's every single movie. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's been a good time. So all those are going to start coming out soon. I'm sort of interested to see, where that lands. I don't know if this is going to turn me into like a soap opera actor, or anything, but I don't know. You just want to keep doing what's in front of you, and it's always fun to shift. And I do not try to keep a preconceived notion of what my career is supposed to be or what type of actor I'm supposed to be. I'm kind of just sort of following it as it comes. From the age of 20 to 30, I quit acting and I moved abroad where I know it's strange, but I was gone. I've really only been back for 6 years. Oh, wow. And I completely, I just relished in doing new things. And I got to tell you, the actor that I was before I left and the actor that came back was starkly different, because the actor beforehand just kind of knew acting in a vacuum. Yeah, I just I knew the craft. Yeah. Look, I had read the Tennessee Williams plays like we all did, and acted them out and understood intentions and super intentions and all these kinds of objective things. But it wasn't until I experienced change in my life where I actively sought out things other than acting. Yeah. It's amazing how that kind of just learning to be a good human being was the best thing I could ever do as an actor. And learning to be a good human being was by seeing new places, other cultures, seeing what other jobs I would love doing. And it was kind of a scrappy existence of me beaching myself in random places of the world for almost no reason whatsoever. Well,
that actually sounds great to me. I mean, I think sometimes, we have to take a step back from something we love to see if we really do love that, to come back to it again. Obviously this is something that's your calling, but sometimes taking a step away from a creative endeavor makes you even stronger when you come back, because you're able to experience different things and kind of clear your mind, I guess, and come back as a stronger person. So I think that's amazing, actually, that you did that.
I think it kind of gave me my purpose in acting, because this was just as a disclaimer here, this was borderline destructive pattern behavior of me when I left the country, and I just wanted to explore for the sake of exploring and just kind of take myself away from what I knew and people that I knew. But I would be in these places, I mean, thousands of miles away from anybody who cared if I lived or died. And my motivation came from fictional characters in movies.
Okay.
But most principally, like, you know, Viggo Mortensen, Michael Shannon, all these actors who were playing these characters who were behaving in such a way and experiencing storytelling when I was on my own was the most powerful and profound motivator I had in my life.
Yeah.
And I think I sort of keep that ever present when I'm, you know, as a sense of purpose. The concept of storytelling, as Anthony Abeson, who also was my teacher, was Jaden's coach as well. But, you know, he used to say that, like, in ancient tribes, the storytellers were amongst, like, the most regarded in the tribe. It was such an important thing to do.
Right.
It's okay, we're not talking about facts, we're talking about mythology and these stories that are meant to motivate, meant to encourage. Some of them are cautionary tales. And I think that sense of purpose when it comes to, you know, I guess I think about that when I play these characters, and sometimes I am playing something that's meant to be looked at as a source of motivation, and sometimes it's a story where it's like, hey, don't be like this guy.
Yeah,
this is what you know, like, this is what can happen. And so that was,
yeah.
I think about Mike in his 20s all the time as my audience.
Yeah,
I think about this kid who's out there with not really too much to hold on to. Granted, it wasn't due to any circumstances other than his own selfish meanderings, but, you know, all the same, you know, there's that's sort of like, I guess I would say my sense of purpose there is to try to, you know, to motivate others as I was motivated in that way.
Well, I think being an actor too, you're able to draw on a lot of personal experiences and a lot of, you know, good or bad from your past. I think you know, you can use that as motivation for whatever character that you're playing. You know, the other thing I wanted to ask you is if you ever, you know, wanted to get back into the theater, if you ever thought about, you know, doing, you know, Broadway shows or anything like that. Is that something that's in your future?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Absolutely. Because I'm always seeking that theater experience on set, and I never get it. You know, there's a part of you when you start in theater that you never get used to everybody being silent while you're performing. The crew, they're not allowed to say things. They're not supposed to laugh either.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm always trying to get a rise out of it. They exist. Just kind of like when you're on stage and you are connecting with the audience, but you're not. You're in character, but
right.
you are technically connecting. That never goes away. Where you're kind of like you're there on set and you have all these people, and I am literally I'm trying to get them to screw up their jobs in my mind. I'm like, I want you to
break.
Hey, gaffers, stop gaffing and start laughing. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, for the record.
Yeah.
That would be very cheesy if I planned it like that. But the other thing too is, as an actor in movies, it is difficult. This is so difficult when you have to go in and you have to act for 6 seconds.
Right. Like
6 super important seconds. There's no before, no after. You do like a Sam Shepard play and you're like in it and raw for 2 hours and it's building it. You're in it. There's no chance of being yanked out of it. You're there connecting with everyone else on stage. The adrenaline's pumping. That's why it's so exciting in that clip from Haas, for the record. Why I love that so much. Sorry if the viewers don't know what we're talking about, but I did illegally send our friend here a clip of a movie that's not out yet.
It's already been deleted.
That scene was 13 pages. I didn't show you the whole thing, just a chunk of it.
Yeah.
It was 13 pages. It took like 18 minutes. And I tell you, like, it is so incredible when you have a scene like that as an actor in movies, because you normally don't get that. When you're in it, and you stay in it and you're forced to listen, especially when it's a long scene. There's a lot of like back and forth. You are just in it for so long. It's incredible. And I miss that so much. And I just know if I just took a second and like, I'm going to go audition for a play and just try to get back to my roots and do that gritty Chicago style. Where we're serious. We're not doing any of that singing New York shit.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's just fine. No, singing. If I could, I would, but I can't, so I won't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the short answer is I would love to do theater. You know, it's so funny. It takes so much focus just to do what I'm normally doing now.
Yeah.
Which, like yesterday, I think I had like something like four like screen test and or auditions that I was doing like virtually. Usually right now, sometime in the middle of summer, everything is gearing up to shoot. In late summer, early fall, it's super like busy time for actors if you've positioned yourself correctly. So like, it's just been a lot of like auditioning lately. And now like Westerns are coming back, and it's so exciting. They're my favorite thing. They're my favorite things to do. Now look, here's the deal. Is years ago, when I said I was interested in doing Westerns, my rep at the time was like, don't do that. Do not do Westerns. Do not try to go be a Western actor, because Mike had pulled up like a little chart and said, Mike, here's a chart of the highest grossing types of films and the lowest grossing. And what was last? Westerns. But we are at a new time now. Yeah. Thanks to Taylor Sheridan, Kevin Costner doing Yellowstone in 1883 and all these like cool shows. And now Westerns have come back and they're all over the place. And I auditioned for literally 3 of them yesterday. Yeah. And I tell you, for my self-tapes, and this is for any actor out there, like, and I'm sorry, I don't care if some sage advice on the internet tells you to not dress up for it, or do whatever you have to do to make you feel like you're in that character. And for me, I got a bottle of oil, spray it on myself, make it look like I'm dripping sweat, dirt, and something comes alive in me. Yeah. And it works. And I book these Westerns a lot of times because I know that I look like it. I know that they know that I look like it. And something about that all mutual knowing makes me act better. Right. I can't explain. Listen, this is an incredibly intangible art form. Yeah. Acting. Something that works today may not work tomorrow. There's no one recipe for any of this. I think Stella Adler even said that. Although she has a lot of different things for your toolbox. Right. But you do whatever it is you have to do. You are literally, what I do, because people ask me, because I work pretty often. Yeah. They're like, so what's your process? I'm like, honestly, I got like 16 different things and only one of them works each time. So I'm basically throwing spaghetti at the wall over and over again and seeing what sticks. Yeah. You have the opportunity now with self-tapes to do it as many times as you want. Right. Jaden, who you had interviewed, he told me once back in the day, some years ago, we met under very strange circumstances that I'm not going to repeat. But we found out that we were both Absonites. It's like a cult. We trained in New York under this man, Anthony Abson. He's like Mike Dumbledore, incredible man. But he's like, Jaden was always talking about the eyes. Get your eyes as close to camera as possible. Don't look into the lens because that's big no-no. And makes casting directors uncomfortable. Right. Just as close as possible and keep that realm there. And I took that to heart. Yeah. And so, the self-tape, you have the opportunity to just to work it as much as you want. Granted, you don't have that kick down the door with your charisma and, high five the casting director. I'm Mike fucking Markoff. How you doing? I'm the next actor in your movie. Yeah. Sorry if you have to bleep what I say.
No, I'm not bleeping anything.
So we don't have that anymore. But what you can do is you can perfect your self tape. And I coach some of my friends and other actors sometimes, and I always get so surprised that when they stop when they do. Yeah. And they'll be okay, cool, that's enough. Because I'll be their reader and I'll be helping out, and I'll be like, oh, did you think you got what you wanted? He's like, yeah, no, they just want it to be over. It's like, listen, most people don't enjoy auditioning. Right. You're probably going to be rejected. You're going to feel like a jerk no matter what. In the small case that, you book it, that's great. But most of the time you're just not. It's a nerve-wracking experience. You have to memorize something quick. It's due by a certain time. Yeah, right. You're given a bunch of adjectives. Right. Like for example, most of these auditions, you're auditioning for, if you're a dude, you're auditioning for a dude that's cool, charismatic, and charming. Yep. Wow. I don't want that responsibility of having to be those adjectives. You are not playing adjectives. You are a human being. Correct. And those adjectives come as a byproduct. And, right.
So Mike, before we go here, I wanted to ask you this question. Everybody wants to leave a legacy behind, and what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? What do you want people to think about when they think of Mike Markoff?
Yeah, I mean, I do not care about my legacy as an actor. I'm hoping with each day that I'm somehow growing into the person that I want to become. And to me, that's simply using whatever gifts I was given to help other people. And I kind of think that's what makes the world go round. So like my short answer is like, and I think the most important thing in our lives are our relationships. And I think the most powerful relationship is that of parenthood. And so I think, honestly, I would just want to be remembered as a really great dad. And I think that's it. Yeah. And I think that's all I'm going to hold myself to, because when I think about how I'd want to be remembered, it would have to be like, what was my greatest responsibility? And was that responsibility fulfilled? Acting, look, as long as they keep letting me do it, I'm going to keep doing it. As long as I keep wanting to do it, I'm going to keep trying to do it.
Yeah.
But that might change. Who knows? You know, one thing I do know is that, like, I'm excited to be a dad at some point. And I know I'm preparing the best way that I can, I think, to never mess that up. Everything else I can mess up, probably have messed up everything else. Being a good dad, I think, is, for me, instinctively. And look, I've gotten to be one in character land before, and it has always been my, like, most profound motivator.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, my unborn son or daughter has been my strongest motivator as an actor. Yeah. I put him or her there all the time. I cast this unborn person all the time. And when I'm a bad guy doing bad things, and I think about my unborn son or daughter back home waiting for me, I will kill anyone. And that's a horrible thing to say like that. But I just mean, like, you get the idea that when I have my given circumstances revolve around that. So I just have to bring it back to that at the end of the day. Be a good dad.
I get it. No, that's powerful. Thank you for that. You know, and Mike, thanks again. It was a great chance meeting you on social media, and, just really appreciate you, coming on the show with me, and, and helping our artists out there, and just getting to know you. I mean, you're a great guy, and can't wait for your projects to come out, and, I can't wait to have you on the show again, hopefully someday.
Awesome. It was such a pleasure being here, man. I really appreciate it.